Hi, this is Jason, the creator of the Grey Rooms. I just wanted to thank all of you for listening to our month of Patreon. We truly hope that you enjoyed it because we really enjoyed creating it for you. And we wanted to thank our patrons for allowing us to open the door of their little world for you to enjoy. Thank you for that. And we do look forward to creating more for you in the coming days and weeks. This is the final chapter of that month of Patreon. Here we have the behind the door of Reunited. So, without further ado, Reunited behind the door. Thanks again, and enjoy.
Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Door with the Grey Rooms podcast. This is for a special bonus episode that we released last week. This was a Patreon-only episode written by Dave Lasota, and we are excited to share it with, well, we've already shared it with you guys, and now we're here to talk about it. Today we have with us the author, Dave Lasota.
There.
We have the actor, Alistair Mackey. He played Mark, the narrator and main character of the story.
Good evening or good morning, depending on where you are.
That's true. And producer extraordinaire, Jason Wilson.
Hello, and welcome to another.
And you know, we didn't even say the name of the story. This is for Reunited. Excellent, emotional, gripping story. Dave, you're awesome for writing this. It really kind of cut into the core of my own emotions. I always ask this: what inspired you to write this story?
Well, thank you very much for your kind words. I appreciate it, as a lot of creative types can probably relate to. Whenever you let your ideas out in the world, it's always nice to hear good things come back.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
Inspiration for the story, well, it kind of happened to me in a roundabout sort of way.
Oh my goodness.
No, well, except for the whole sacrifice thing. No, I had been away from my family for a long time because I had left for school, and I stayed where I went to school and worked forever, and I had just become disconnected with family because of life. And I remember my stepmother calling me one time and saying, "Hey, kid sister's getting married. Do you want to come?" So obviously I said yes, and so it was a real emotional reunion with that. And then fast forward to around Thanksgiving time, I stayed at her house. I was visiting, and I stayed at her house again, and I just had this weird idea because we had lost our father a long time ago. And I'm laying in this room, I'm on an air mattress on the floor, and I look towards the door, and I just see a shadow pass the door jamb. And I was like, what if my sisters got together and did a ritual to bring back our father, and I was involved? so it was kind of weird, like just those kind of weird ideas that went through my mind. So I had that one in my back pocket for a while. And then I hadn't written for a long time, and I had a rather significant life change. And I said, you know what, I'm going to give this a try. And then I just noticed on Twitter that there was a submission call, and I said, I'm going to give it a try.
And magic was born. That's awesome.
I hope so.
So you wrote this story specifically for the Grey Rooms?
Yes.
Well, yeah, you had the idea first, and then you kind of put it into a story.
I always had, I have a notebooks upon notebooks of ideas of stories that should be written or could be written. And I had thought, I read the submission guidelines and I said, well, I could definitely kill a character off. So let's try it. And I worked through it. And of course, I am one of those procrastinators that will wait right up until the deadline to try to fire one off and then get it all together. Luckily, there was a delay in that submission deadline, so I had the weekend to work on it. And
there you go.
Reunited was born.
Sometimes creation is best under pressure. It's interesting. So if I can rewind a little bit, you had the idea of the resurrection, basically, that takes place at the end of the story. You had that idea first, and then you kind of worked your own personal situation with your sister, you said, into the story, basically. I thought it was going to be the other way around, that, you came up with the general story, and then you're like, now how do I end this? I know, we're going to do a resurrection. So it's interesting that, if I'm correct here, that you did it actually in that fashion, resurrection first and then the rest of the story. I would have never thought that, because the resurrection portion was to me, it was the best surprise twist. I never would have seen that coming. And there was already so much suspense building up. Like, why are people looking at him at the wedding? What is this accident that they keep referencing? It was really a really good slow burn, I think. You did an amazing job at that. Oh, yeah. I loved the story. I loved how it got to the end. I loved it. When at the beginning, I was like, okay, why is this guy being shunned? Is he just a big alcoholic? I mean, I figured that. And then, you find out, his negligence, and then the whole sacrifice at the end with the twins. I thought that was really cool. Yeah, I thought that was great.
Well, thank you. No, I had the resurrection part first, because I kind of work backwards most of the time. Whenever I have a story idea, I was like, okay, this is my end game. How do I get there? So I had that, and then I just moved pieces. I didn't necessarily know how I was going to get there. I didn't know who I was going to bring back. And then I started going off, and then something clicked and said, well, you know what? There has to be an accident. Why are we trying to bring this person back? And pieces fell into place somehow. Just get into that flow, and then finding out, well, why would he be asked back for so long? And it was funny, whenever I was writing it, I was thinking, I was like, wait a second, season 1 has a lot of that, heavy drinking, alcoholic addiction themes. Should I really start, continuing on with this kind of track if it's for season 2? And I just ran with it.
That was brilliant too, that you used kind of alcoholism as, it wasn't like the main driving point, even though it was the cause, I guess, of the accident. But I think you did it very tactfully. You didn't glorify alcoholism. The story wasn't about alcoholism, but it definitely carried into affecting, the main character going through what he was going through. So I thought that was done very well. You handled that very well, because I could see maybe someone, incorporating alcoholism, either making it too much about the alcohol itself, or just, I don't know. It came off so believable. I really love when it's a horror story where it's not just right out of the gate, there's a giant monster attacking someone's cabin, and then the story's all about how to survive the monster. You kind of already have to suspend your disbelief. But with your story, you could follow along, and it was like, wow, this could have happened to me, this could have happened to my buddy, this could have happened to so-and-so. So you really kind of kept it down to the everyman level, which I think is a lot better at scaring and freaking people out. It's very subtle. It gets under your skin. That was my favorite part of the story. Just how you set it all up that way. Hey, Alistair, how did you feel recording this? Was there anything that you drew upon to kind of show the subtle emotions that your character went through, or anything like that?
There was actually there was a lot in this story which I could identify with. Again, not the being killed to bring somebody back part of it, but the sort of I too spent a lot of time away from my family growing up. I moved out when I was 18 to go to university, and I didn't really. I moved sometimes thousands of miles away when I was working in the Middle East. And I was used to coming back after a couple of years or so, and everything having changed, everyone not really remembering who I was or having a memory of me that was very different and associated to sort of a different time of my life when I wouldn't say I was a bad kid, but I wasn't the best teenager. So that sort of spoke to me a little bit of being awkward around family. So I was able to pull on that. I don't, in terms of the addiction side of things, the alcoholism has not been a problem for me as of yet. So I couldn't immediately lean on that. Actually, having a lovely glass of scotch as we speak.
I was going to say, you said yet.
I was going to say, man, we're all quarantined right now, man. We got to have hobbies eventually.
Well, see, I
experimenting alcohol myself.
All you're behind the doors with your bourbon, so I'm doing my version at the moment. I've got another 12-year-old Kalela.
I'm still in my postal uniform right now, man. I'm doing nothing.
Well, it's 11:15 here, so I'm having my nightcap.
Salud.
It's 3 p.m. and I'm sipping on Campari, so
there we go.
So, but in terms of addiction to sort of coming out the back of that, I actually I don't mind sharing this. I'm a Gambling Anonymous member. So I've had my own struggles with that in the past, and that was helpful for me to be able to draw on.
Good for you, by the way, for taking care of that, buddy. Seriously,
Thank you very much.
That's a tough one. I know. I used to work at a casino and I watched people. So good job.
It's a strange process to go through to not have something physical, but there's a lot of similarities I could draw from that process into going into this position as well, going into this role, and sort of bringing the character from that perspective. And I hope that came across in the story.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, your character, you portrayed the character like it didn't seem like, I mean, granted the situation, but it didn't seem like your life had fallen apart as a former alcoholic. You know, you were in recovery and your family was accepting you back despite what happened. And I thought you played it very well. You seemed like a very strong person that had overcome something. You didn't seem
kind of accepting him back. There was still a rift there. There was still a rift.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah, there was a reluctance there.
Yes.
No,
you portrayed it.
You did a fantastic job. You pretty much nailed the voice that I had in my head while I was writing it, so I couldn't have asked for anything more.
Yeah. How did you do that? See, because to you, we have the accents, and you don't. But to us, we're like, oh, his accent is very thick. So how did you make you sound like us?
Well, that's the thing I find with the voice work that I get and the castings that I get, both from you guys and from other places, is a lot of it is American. Mm-hmm. So my hardest thing is trying to add things to sort of what I see as the base American accent to bring a character out of it and try and localize it.
Yeah.
But I don't know where the localities are for different accents, so it tends to be pulling from films for me.
Makes sense.
I try and add either some harshness to it or some lightness to it. I try to I take the standard American accent and I just, which might be offensive actually to you guys. I apologize. I'm sure there's a default for the Europeans when we think of America, and it's then taking that base accent and adding character to it, so adding history to it. It's like, well, a character could end a sentence with this inflection, and you can apply sort of the rhythm of accents from across the world to the American accent. That it changes where it sounds like it's from. If I was to try and attempt something like a Minnesota accent or something like that, it would take people way too far out the character, because that's...
You become Canadian.
Yeah, exactly. Or it would just seem like an episode of Fargo, and it's not going to work. So I have to do sort of edit it subtly, rather than go for a regional accent or something like Chicago or Boston or something like that. It would become, for somebody who's not naturally American, somewhat of a parody of that accent, and that detracts from the story for me. So I try not to think too much about it, actually, and just let the characters, like, nuances and individual bits come out as I'm recording it, but still just using that American accent. It's hard to define.
Well, it's a process to go through, yeah.
Because for me, I don't feel like I have an accent, but I'm very aware that I do have a natural accent.
Yeah, right. See, I was just listening to you. And one of the things I was like, man, it's got to be hard for him, because I say out and you say out. It's like, it's a definite difference. But yeah, I mean, you do. You've always done a phenomenal job. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'm always excited when I get something from Alistair Mackey, because it's going to be top notch all the time, every time. So yeah, man, I can't do what you do. That's for sure.
And it's never in my own accent either.
Yeah, even poor Todd, not even in your accent.
Well, what would you consider Todd's accent?
Oh, Todd's Cockney.
That's not Cockney. Oh, it is Cockney. Okay.
Yeah, Todd's Cockney. Okay. It's harsher Cockney, so it's rural Cockney. It's not city Cockney, because city Cockney would be a bit more clipped and a bit more, not professional, but a bit clearer to work with, whereas Todd is very much...
mushmouth at times.
Yeah. He's I very much see him with a flat cap. Sort of working in the fields. Yeah. He's my kind of dude. He's a rural guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very much Cockney that's awesome. Coming through.
And back and talking about accents, I'm from Pittsburgh, and we have our own animal of accent, and I would not expect or want you to do our accents.
How do you define a Pittsburgh accent?
Well, you have like Jason was saying about the outs, right? Everyone has that. We say out. We elongate everything. So if I want to go downtown, I'd go downtown.
Okay.
Yeah, you see, he did it in his description. He did it twice. He said it, and then he said it. It was the same thing.
And I try not to have that, but it's... I don't...
That's a technique that I was taught when I was learning how to do accents, was to find a gateway phrase that'll help you get in and out of the accent every time. So that could be the sentence you just used there for the Pittsburgh accent. For like Welsh, for example, it's one word. I use the word antibiotics to get into the Welsh accent, because the word antibiotics sounds ridiculous in a Welsh accent. Because it sounds like antibiotics.
That sounds beautiful. What are you talking about?
You're in the Welsh accent, and everything's absolutely fabulous, and you can just carry on.
Nice.
But I have different gateway phrases for different accents, and then impressions and things like that. You have lines that you use to, this is my anchor, and if I lose the accent, then I go back to that. I recorded. For Kelly Evans, I recorded a version of her novel, The Morte Carne, in a Welsh accent, and that was 8-hour days of solid reading in a Welsh accent. If I ever lost it, for some reason, I would go French, and I don't know why. After about 5 hours, I would always come back to a particular set of phrases to re-anchor myself in that accent before I could carry on.
Interesting. And was this Kelly Evans that you did the Certain Man in Russia for us?
Yeah, it was off the back of that
Kelly Evans. Okay.
We worked together on an audio recording, which we're sadly not going to publish, but we did part of an audio recording for her novel, The Morte Carne, which is a fantastic novel. If anyone,
that novel was really neat. I got it when she'd actually submitted a certain man in Russia. We had talked for a little bit. It's real cool, the whole zombie aspect from the mid ages, kind of the dark ages or whatever kind of a situation. Geez, I don't even know what I'm saying. I'm backing out again. There you go.
Well, hey, let's get into your production stuff, Jason. Like,
I
was impressed.
Look, I just got all French. Sorry, Alistair.
Sacre bleu.
It happens in the weather.
Just randomly turned French. It just happened.
Your mother was at Amsterdam and your father.
Yes, you're the best.
There it is.
We started talking about the latent flight patterns, the African swallows. So, you follow there, Dave. And please tell me you've seen that movie. You have to.
100%. And that's what I say. There's the constant joke about, well, African or European swallow. That was a classic. That's I grew up.
God,
100%. Small anecdote, if I may interject, very, very quickly.
Yes, please.
My dad's in that film.
What?
Yep. My dad is in, for those of you who don't know what one we're referencing, Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
Must see.
The scene, he's still not spotted himself yet. The scene at the end where the army is running down the hill towards the castle and then a police car pulls up in front of them. The army was pulled from Glasgow University because it's shot in Scotland. Just from the pool hall there, they was like, do you guys want to come and be in a Monty Python film? They were like, yeah, sure. Then they were all half cut. So it's just a bunch of drunken Glasgow University students running down the hill towards this police car, and my father was one of them.
That is awesome. It's kind of a similar situation when we lived in the UK. My dad, who was in the military at the RAF Mildenhall there, they actually put up a thing on a bulletin board asking people if they wanted to be in a movie. And so my dad was cast as an extra in the Last Days of Patton. And he actually did find himself. He stopped and said, there I am. And he's in a crowd of soldiers. And so he was actually originally cast in that movie in the Last Days of Patton. They capture a German soldier and they basically interrogate him. And they were going to cast my dad originally as that German soldier, because the way he had kind of a very rough look to him, and that I guess he looked the part, but he lived too far away, so they just let him do the extra thing. But yeah, so that's kind of cool, man. I was an extra in the movie Gettysburg.
What did you play, Jason?
I was a dead Union soldier.
I didn't want to say I was gonna ask if you were a dead soldier, but I was gonna wait.
Yes, I was. So, anyways,
dead soldier number 5. So Jason, let's talk about your production for this. I was really impressed with how, we talk about like certain stories have like a lot of different scenes that move around. This one was just really kind of, Alistair's character getting to the wedding, then being at the wedding, and then back at his sister's house. I actually didn't catch until the second or third time listening to it, just the subtle things you did, like the whispering in the background at the wedding. I don't know, I didn't catch that the first time. It wasn't until the second or third, and I was like, oh, this just ratcheted it up a little bit. Like they're all I think it was because I had headphones on the second or third time, and I could definitely hear it that way. But that just added to the ambiance of like just this slow burning, suspenseful build towards what in the goddamn hell is going on here. All these people whispering. And then you did these little subtle effects of like, I'm forgetting which part now, but like the voices would kind of slow down a little bit and then fade off in the background. Were there any fun moments you had putting this story together, or any hardships trying to emulate any kind of sounds? Speak on it.
The hardest part, honestly, because I really didn't have too many difficulties with this story, because for lack of a better way to describe it, it's really cut and dry. There's no messing around here. This is where you're at in the scene. This is where you're at in the scene. This is where you're at in the scene. Like at the beginning, he's out in the parking lot, and I coincidentally had just been in a parking lot, but a gravel one. like a couple of days prior, so I instantly just went back there in my mind. And basically what I do is I read the story, and then I read the story, and then I read the story. And while I'm reading it, I sit there and I try to make a movie in my head. And it's always kind of neat to develop the environment. And I try to be three-dimensional in the sound effects. I'm actually glad that you picked up on that. That's the wedding crowd. Because how often you go to a wedding and people aren't talking? Like there's going to be somebody making noises and stuff. You're going to hear people like or clearing their throat or something. I mean, if you really want to immerse your audience, you have to think just outside of don't be in a tunnel. There's things happening to your right, to your left, behind you, up, down. You live in a 3D world, so that's what we got to do. And I have an idea of what I want to do with everything, but it wasn't until I actually received the dialogue from Alistair that I was able to sit down and really put it all together, because the warmness of his voice, like just the tones in his voice, really helped me build everything. But yeah, everything is just trying to make it, because we're just working with audio. You can't see pictures, so I try to take as much from the environment that is described in the story in that scene, and I try to audibly build a world for you to kind of visualize in your head what's going on. So no real hardships, but yeah, that's the fun part. Actually, that's probably the funnest part of being the audio guy, is that I get to create these worlds that everybody gets to listen to. It's a lot of fun.
Do you ever record any kind of ambient sounds yourself that you might want to use for something, or do you tend to rely on like pre-built ambient sound effects, things like that?
Yeah, right now I'm dealing with a lot of pre-built stuff. I'm actually just started doing some research on how to I eventually want to do my own Foley. I eventually want to pretty much get everything naturally. But yeah, like a lot of the stuff I use is just sitting around at a sound effects library and just sitting there finding the one sound effect I want. And if I have to sit there for 20 minutes till I find that one car door opening and closing sound I like, then that's what it takes.
Right. And that's not easy, because I know that like you just said, for example, if you needed a car door sound, sometimes it's not just simple to just look up car door sound. You have to get inventive. Like I was asking you about our last Behind the Door we did, how you did the sound of the boat coming up out of the water for the Rivers story.
Right.
And I was thinking you were using like a boiling sound or something, but you used the sound of ships running aground, right?
Right. Yeah. And actually, a ship sinking too. Yep.
Right, and a ship sinking. So you didn't just look up what does a boat sound like coming out of the water. You had to get inventive with repositioning, basically repurposing, sounds. So I imagine you kind of do subtle stuff like that all the time. It's just not very often talked about.
That's fine. That's fine. I mean, that's the thing about being the audio guy, man. We don't get talked about. We just get listened to, But it's a lot like with Alistair. It's a lot of movies. So again, you got to sit there and you have to think about, well, what's this environment going to sound like? Well, the only thing I can really do is go back to movies I've watched and think about how that scene, how it related to what was going on at that time. And the same, like again, as Alistair, I used the movie to kind of as a reference point to build off of and just kind of try to make it sound realistic. I mean, because sometimes you can put a sound effect in there. And again, if I could just go out there and get any willy-nilly car door opening and closing, but it may not sound right with the scene. You have to make sure that what's the temperature of the scene? Is the scene bright? Is it blue? Is it is it kind of cold or warm? I mean, what's going on? You can't just have like a door like cack, and it's a very glum scene. You got to have things that match it. So it's a process, but it's fun.
Yeah, it could throw off the whole episode if you're not really thinking, like you said, if you just stuck any old sound in there that you needed, it could throw the balance off for the story.
Yeah, and that's also disrespectful to the authors and to the voice talent. They're putting in all the hard work and effort to create the beautiful story and to bring it to alive with their wonderful acting abilities. How dare I be lazy and just throw something in there that's not going to take it to that next level? So.
The Grey Rooms does not do that.
One team, one dream, baby.
There you go. Exactly. So Dave, what have you ever written other stories that have become, like a podcast episode? Or have you ever written for other podcasts? Have you had other stories published before? Like, what is your background here as an author?
This is my first one. This is my first story that was picked up and produced. Thank you.
You win. Confetti everywhere.
It's like I said, I had just started the November prior to this deadline. I participated in the National Novel Writing Month, or NaNoWriMo, because I had a story that I wanted to get out. I had some more time on my hands, and I went to I went to writing, and I was successful in it. I still haven't finished that book. 2 NaNoWriMos removed now. I have 110,000 words and no third act. But I just started writing more, and I had this opportunity, so I submitted. I currently write book reviews and coordinate book reviews for a site out of Canada called Horrorbound, and I really have to enunciate the horror on part of that. It's horrorbound.net, and we're all over the place as far as horror goes. So we have books, movies, independent articles. We've published some short fiction from our extremely talented authors. So I do that, and I have something right now in review for an anthology. But like I said, I'm really just getting into the writing on a regular basis and submitting things right now.
Awesome. Well, definitely, for people listening to this at the time they're listening, we're going to include as many notes in the show notes, any links that we can for everything that you just discussed, so that we can get people kind of in on what you're doing.
Yeah, I really had to. I learned that I had to enunciate that word because I teach creative writing for a community college local here. And the first time I said that, I write for Horrorbound, and everyone looked at me like really weird, and then I realized it sounded a little bit different.
A little risque.
Like you're Horrorbound.
So
you're driving to the red light district.
I thought I was going to learn how to write scary stories, not kink fetish.
Yeah, there you go.
Dave, real quick there on that, by the way, you said you teach creative writing. I have to tell you, for the life of me, cannot remember the young lady's name, but it was one year, my 11th grade year in high school, I had this one teacher, and she was a creative writing teacher, and she would have us come in, and she would write one sentence on the chalkboard, and she would say, okay, 30 minutes, go. And we would have to take that one sentence and write out a story. And that was really when I realized that I had a passion or desire to create things like this, because I used to sit there and I always used to write horror stories and take them and just write really messed up things about alien abduction and stuff. So creative writing teachers got a special place in my heart, because the creative writing teachers are actually one of the first things that really pushed me to kind of want to create this kind of stuff. So thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I firmly believe that everyone does have a story in them. Everyone has someone out there that wants to hear their story, right? So
sure.
Out of everyone that listens to this last week or whenever this is released, maybe the majority of them won't like it and be like, I never want to hear anything from this one guy again. But there's going to be one out there that it's really going to touch, and that's who I write for.
That's right. There you go, brother.
And I guarantee you it's the opposite. There's going to be everyone that wants to know more about you, and there'll just be one guy or woman or whoever that's like, yeah, I didn't like this story. And then they'll go away.
It's going to be some dude. It's going to be some dude like, what? Well, yeah, what?
I could write a better story.
Some little salty guy sitting around just all ticked off.
Mm-hmm. No, back to the production. I tell you what, Brooks, whenever you said about that ambient sound and that whispers whenever he's walking in, that is so important, because I listen to a lot of. I have an hour and 10 commute one way to work, and I listen to a lot of audio dramas and a lot of podcasts, and that is so important, because it adds that tension too, because as he's walking down and you hear those whispers, are they talking about him? And that adds to that anxiety, and I think that really allows the listener and the reader to get behind that. and feel
Yes,
that.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's
very
when
much.
you think about it, it's just something in the background, but it definitely supports and turns up the volume on the story, because if it's there, maybe you don't notice it, but if it wasn't there, you would definitely notice the lack of it. So yeah, it's very much needed to help prop up the story for sure. Yeah.
Oh, it's a good day. This is a great day.
Jason's gonna listen to this over and over again.
I'm gonna call my mom after this.
It's like you won the Oscar.
Next question.
Yeah, right. Let's move on.
So
Did you do the choking during the water torture, or is that a added sound effect from Jason?
Jason, was that you or no? Was that? Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know.
So it wasn't
To be
Alistair.
perfectly honest, sometimes I do. Sometimes I do choking sound effects and you use them, and sometimes I do choking sound effects and you don't.
Yeah. No, that
So
wasn't.
Graham said this in the last episode.
I think the only time you've used me choking was when Todd got throttled.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. No. Yeah. That was a stock one. Well, you know what? Honestly, to be fair, I think that might have been a combination. I've done that. Like, I actually just did that in a story I just finished. The last story of the regular season, I just finished it where character Margaret Ashley, she gets strangled in it. Spoiler alert. It's been in the first like friggin' 2 minutes. So whatever. But another spoiler alert. But no. So I use a combination of her and some stock stuff that I have to kind of stretch it out. So no, actually, I kind of think it might have been a combination. So
I remember there was one episode where I had to do some coughing or some choking or something like that, and I didn't record it. I just recorded the lines because I knew you'd add stock in, and then I listened to the episode, and the person sounded so much like the file you found sounded so much like me. I was like, did I record choking for that one?
No, sir. That's the power of pitch shifting and bourbon. Sit here and you adjust the tones and tone.
It was very impressive. I was just like, is that me? No, I didn't record coughs for that one.
He's done it to all of us, Alistair. He's done it to all of us. We've all
With that
recorded
being
something.
said, if you are voice talent out there, it is always nice if you want to throw in some of the Foley. We appreciate that. It actually makes it easier to kind of put the characters together, because sometimes you find Foley, it doesn't sound like them, and you got to sit there and adjust it. But if you don't, whatever, it is what it is.
I feel like I'm getting called out now on the podcast.
No, you're not.
I'll do Foley
Nobody
next
gets called
time.
out here.
I'm sorry.
I can't wait till you hear this upset, that number 10 episode. The one part in there when Todd stands up, the thing I found, I hope you know what I'm talking about, but the part I found, it's so comical. It's so hilarious. I was in tears.
I know what you're talking about, Jason.
Michael Zanke, who wrote it, he sent me a big DM on that. He said it was what did he say, Brooks? He said it was auditory something like cinema, like auditory cinema, and he was dying. He was loving it. So I think you'll be happy with it. So way to nail Todd.
I'd have to look back, but he said something hilarious. It just it was good part of the story, definitely.
Yeah, there are certain things that I won't provide Foley for.
Oh, yeah. Let's just say it doesn't involve the mouth. You're right.
Can't wait for that episode.
Yeah, Dave's like, what am I learning here? So
The inside track. I'm all right.
Yeah. So back to you, Dave. What is your flavor of horror? Like, what do you find yourself listening to in terms of podcasts? What do you find yourself reading? In terms of horror, what is it that you like?
I am all over the board. I mean, obviously, no sleep. A lot of creepy.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the other like audio dramas, like Darkest Night, is fantastic.
That's a good
as far as reading goes, I guess if I had a wheelhouse of horror, it would be the possession, supernatural, ghost sort of thing. Though that really doesn't scare me. What really scares me is the things that can actually happen. Well, not to say possessions and things can't happen, but like, what was it? The Strangers, home invasion, like funny games, things like that. That terrifies me.
Yeah. Kind of like where No Sleep used to be, like early on in the beginning of No Sleep podcast, where they were much more kind of grounded in speculative fiction of everyday things that would happen that could go wrong, and they could encompass ghosts or demons or supernatural, anything like that. I like that too. That's the subtleness of that kind of stuff gets to me. Versus just like, oh, look at that big 50-foot monster. Oh, it's blowing fire at everything. Oh, that's not really scary.
Don't get me wrong. I am a sucker for a good, slasher or monster flick. The Universal monsters are classics. I grew up watching them. But something that stuck with me was whenever I watched The Exorcist whenever I was younger. That's the one that stuck with me. And then anyone that can really, like, as far as whenever I read a lot of books just for reviews, and then there are a lot of independent authors. But sometimes if someone can take me and put me in their world, like Adam Nevill with The Ritual, like I really thought that I was walking through the woods with those characters. Mira Grant or Shauna McGuire, she's taken me into. I'm reading Into the Drowning Deep right now. And I'm on this boat with these people. I'm in that environment. So anyone that can really take me and put me in there, I get behind.
The Ritual is a good movie, by the way.
Yeah, that was his book. Like the way he set the mood very, very early on. It was very claustrophobic, very oppressive, and I'm just like, I need to get out of here. I have to read this book outside, but not in the woods, like in a field.
Yes, sir.
Interesting. Yeah, I think I read it when I was maybe 10 or 11, and that was my first real exposure to like just true visceral horror. And I remember feeling that first time of like reading the book, but then needing to kind of turn more lights on and just check around the house a little bit. And I never got that from reading monster books. And yeah, I don't know. There's a very difference between just this giant monster in your face doing stuff versus the more subtle, like you realize there's a bad guy, ghost, monster, whatever, but it's more how you're reacting to everything and how it's affecting your life. That's the scary part. So yeah, I've always been more partial to suspenseful kind of horror stuff like that.
Yeah, it's the monster you can see. Even if you don't see it, there's something there, right? You know that something's happening. But the things that make you question your reality, like, did I leave that cupboard open, or did I just watch my dish fly off the counter, or what kind of, why is my daughter or my wife or my brother speaking in tongues all of a sudden in a voice that, stuff like that really, gets my ghost too.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's what I was trying to say. That those kind of subtle things are what gets me. Whereas I would not be afraid if Godzilla was walking down the street right now. I'd just be like, okay, we're gonna die. That's it. And then that's that. There's no terror there. It's just inevitable. It's just okay. We're done. So, Alistair, what's your flavor of horror?
My flavor of horror, I really like. I don't read much horror. I used to when I was little. I loved the Goosebumps books. I think I had loads of them when I was little. The first proper horror novel I read, which I would describe as horror, was Jaws, the Peter Benchley novel.
Yeah, that is horror, dude.
Yeah.
Jaws made me afraid of my damn tub.
I've actually still never seen the movie. I've never seen the movie, but I've read the novel back to back a few times. I'm always very honest when I come on here. Like, horror is not really a genre that I go in for that much. It has to be a very specific type of horror that I would go out of my way to sort of either listen to or to watch. In terms of films, I love horror with systems. Now, what I mean by that is something like Cube, where you're put into a world which has a particular set of rules, and it's how those rules work. So something like Cube, or I love the Final Destination films where there's systems at play. There's a set of bullet points you have to hit. I'm fascinated by Rube Goldberg devices. And so like a conceptual horror, like I really enjoyed It Follows, for example.
I like that one too. That's kind of a divisive movie, but I loved it.
Yeah, it's because honestly I'm a coward. So if it's an actually scary film with like people I can relate to, then I'm just going to turn it off because I'm going to be like, no, not for me. Thank you very much. Walking away. But if it's something with a system that I can disassociate with myself from, I can see the construction of it, like the Saw films as well. Like some, not all of them, but some of their construction of their devices and their plots and like the twists and turns of how that works. It's systems is the best way I can think to describe it. But I like horror with rules. Cube was my first real introduction.
Oh, I was just getting ready to ask if you have ever seen Cube.
Yeah,
Cube is great. And the second, although the third one was a little meh. Cube kind of revealed too much, and it didn't make sense anyways.
Cube's so good, man.
Hypercube. But yeah, that's my kind of horror. Is one with systems.
You see, I think that we're pretty similar in that respect, man. I mean, I think that things like that are more because there are psychos out there. You could see yourself in a saw chair. You could see yourself in a room like Cube where you need to solve something, or you're going to end up getting sliced up by invisible wires popping up out of the floor. Yeah, I think we're similar there. I'm not a monster movie guy. I'm more afraid of serial killer kind of stuff and like real life things that can happen, car accidents. Like I remember the movie Volcano from a billion years ago. I think it was in the 90s.
Oh, I love Volcano.
Yeah, so you know the part in there where they're in the subway tunnel and they have to get off the train with the lava's down there, so the firefighter has to jump into the lava to throw this little girl to another guy, and he's just melting into the lava. It's that kind of stuff. It's like, man, it's just those right there. And demon stuff like that. Like Hellraiser is one of my all-time favorite movies. So, it's just that kind of stuff right there.
Yeah. So, that first one just scarred me as a child. The first Hellraiser was when he was up in the attic, right?
Yeah,
he was slowly becoming corporeal again. Yeah, that messed me up as a child.
Hellraiser 2 is my favorite one, man. Hellbound, that's my favorite one, and that's apparently that's one of the least liked, but I freaking love that one.
I've never seen the Hellraisers. The one series I subscribed to, because I tried to look at the Halloweens, Friday 13th. I didn't really go in for the slasher one, but the closest I went to was the Nightmare on Elm Street ones. I loved the Nightmare on Elm Street ones, but because there's a system to it.
I was just going to say, because there are rules there, yeah. Oh, interesting. I like how you call it systems, because I get what you're saying. It's just kind of hard to quantify what that means, but I totally follow along.
Type.
Yeah. I love it.
Freddy had the personality, right? Freddy had a personality after the second movie. He actually started becoming more, I guess, I don't know. The way that Robert Englund played that character in Nightmare on Elm Street was made that franchise.
Right, he came into his own. Kind of in the first movie, he could have kind of been anything or anyone, or it could have been anything or anyone fulfilling that portion or fulfilling that character. But yes, you're right. As you got into the second and the third one, he really became his own character that just ratcheted up the terrifying part for everybody watching it. So I agree with that. It's just funny to think about those movies, because you can also look back and go, God damn, these movies are cheesy as hell compared to a lot of the horror stuff that we can watch, in movies nowadays. But still, it was great for its time, and it's held up well, I think. Some of them have. Got a little weird by movie 5 or 6, but
it becomes like a comedy towards the end of it.
Yeah, right? Yeah, exactly. And then the newer versions that came out, whatever. Yeah. I saw them just to see them. That was about it.
Careful, guys. You're all stepping into old man zone. Like, it was great when I was around. You kids these days, you don't know nothing about no horror.
Damn kids.
With your TikToks and your CGIs.
Yeah.
They used real masks back in the day.
They really burned that man alive. Yeah. I'll tell you what, like horror films. Horror films to me today, as a definition, are things like The Big Short.
Yeah.
Wolf of Wall Street and stuff like that come under horror for me these days. When you're looking at the level of realism and all these people exist, that's awful.
I guess that makes sense. That does make sense. That would fall into my. I have to say I haven't seen that movie, but that makes sense. That makes sense because this is a real
It's
person. This is like,
it's a different type of terror, particularly when it comes to something like The Big Short. It's like, oh, this can happen. Good.
That's my kind of horror.
Asian movies are so terrifying for me. I mean, I think the most chilling line out of almost any movie that I've seen was in The Strangers, and like, why are you doing this? Like, because you were home. Like that.
Yeah.
That is terrifying.
Yeah, it's again going back to what you said, Jason, about like horror that can conceivably happen.
That's my favorite.
Yeah.
Well,
Mike Lee was the first one. I remember reaching out to Mike Lee, and he did Falling for me, which was the first story I ever did, and he's also working on one for me, which is a fictionalized rendition of the Brazen Bull. Because that kind of stuff just really gets me. The Bronze Bull. I hope you guys know that story. So, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the real life story stuff that can hurt you is great. But back to this story, though. Sorry, I got sidetracked on that one. This one was it when I remember when I first read this. By the way, Dave, I'll be honest with you. I was like, well, wait a minute. This is because I'm more of again one of those kind of like it's a big kind of a big oh my god that really sucks ending. And I said, well then this is really subtle. Does this guy actually what the heck happens? And I read it again. I was like, oh. Okay. No, I get it now. This is crazy. So he's basically, they're going to kill him to put him into her, or give her, swap places basically, because she's dead, he's alive kind of thing. And I don't know. I thought that, at least that's what I took from it. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. I really enjoyed this story. It was one of the first ones after I'd read it a second time that I was instantly like, okay, this one has to be somewhere. We have to use this story. So it's a great story. And I look forward to reading whatever you're going to submit for season 3.
Thank you. Yeah, I was worried that I was jumping too much in between, not genres, but where my end game was going to be. Like the little ghost girl showing up, and then, he's poisoned or knocked out. And then the ritual at the end. So I was worried that I was pulling too much and that it wasn't going to be flush. But again, with Way Alistair and who did the sister? Was that Aaron?
Who did that right off? I think that was Aaron. Let me look.
Yeah, everyone involved knocked it out of the park.
Escaping my friggin' mind.
Yeah, but she was fan. Just the emotion that you hear in her voice especially whenever at the top of the stairs when they're talking about that picture, that really sets the tone. Like, what's going to happen? She's not as happy as she seemed to be with him being there. So I was hoping I wasn't taking from too many areas, but it seemed to work out.
Yeah, Aaron King played the sister, Margaret Ashley played the mother, and Graham Rowett cameoed as the dad.
Yeah, I had to throw that wrong kid died line in there from, was that Dewey Cox, the John C. Reilly movie?
Hard, yeah. I totally picked that up.
I couldn't help it. I was hoping it wasn't going to make it like too cheesy, but
it's a reference for people who get it. It's fine for people who don't. I think I liked it.
And we're always so grateful to be able to work with Alistair Mackey. He's been with us now for this is your second season with us, man, I believe. And second season. And he's been
back to the previews in the first season.
That's right, man. Holy crap, dang, it's been forever, huh? But we've been so blessed to have such a talented individual such as Alistair Mackey grace us with his gifts and talents. And yeah, man, I like I said, I always look forward to your audio. I always know it's going to be top notch. And if this is your first time ever really listening to anything from the Grey Rooms, go back and listen to the entire first season. Find the stories with Alistair in there, but listen to Todd. I gotta tell you, I can't let Alistair leave this conversation without us touching base on Todd and like mentioning how much Todd is like a personal favorite of mine, and I think Todd is becoming quite a fan favorite, and that's all because of your deliveries. You make him so alive. Man, you rock, Alistair, Todd. So make sure you keep coming back every year, buddy. We gotta keep you around.
I'm here for as long as you'll have me, definitely, and I'll say the same for Todd as well. He's very, very good fun to play, and I was just very grateful that we got to expand on him because he was a patron only character to start with,
Right.
Sort of the warden's sidekick for a couple of episodes, and I think he was originally going to be killed off in the first episode, and that was all you were going to hear from him.
Right.
And then. Well, the patrons were deciding how he died and stuff. I liked the end of season 1 where they thought it was a worse punishment to let him live.
Yeah,
Thinking
that's
outside
our
the
patrons.
box.
We gotta love them.
I'm at the mercy of the patrons.
But awesome. Yeah, man. Well, we love you, brother. And Dave, I love your story, man. Make sure, again, the 18th, get one in. I want to be able to read it. Don't worry, Alistair. We're gonna throw as much Todd at you as we can. So
No worries.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Alistair. Thank you again, Jason. Phenomenal job. If Aaron and Margaret and Graham are listening, thank you very much for bringing this to life. It was definitely an experience, and I appreciate it.
yes, sir. I've got to take a moment too to thank the people behind the scenes that don't really get a lot of love, though. I mean, Cassie Pertiet is our creative director. She does a lot of the web designing and artwork. She did the artwork for that story. I hope you got to see that because she's phenomenal. And actually just released on our Patreon page a video of her creating the art for that episode. It's phenomenal stuff. Cassie's Brooks here. He's stepped up and he's done a lot of the interviewing process. He does a great job. Helps me run the ship. Keeps everything in line with us here. He directs the social media excellent, and he offers his voice talents from time to time, doing a great job on that. Obviously, Graham Rowett. Don't need to say much more than that. It's Graham Rowett. If you don't know who Graham is, just turn on a podcast. He's in all of them.
No kidding.
Every single one of them.
Can I interject, though? One thing that I am kind of disappointed from season 1 when you used to do the Twitter handles and you would do NY for New York. You really had something going there to have the NY be something different, like Naked Yoga or Nervous Yap.
Good. David, we used to make fun of him all the time.
I really thought that he got sick of it. Oh man, Brooke, I can barely hear you, brother.
We would always make fun of you for that, Jason. Always.
And we gave Graham crap all the time.
For New York.
Graham, NY.
That's the only criticism I have. I had an opportunity to really run with that one.
Expound on it. Yeah. Maybe it'll return in season 3 and then Graham won't. He'll be like, no, I'm done with this garbage.
I still have my Graham Rooms t-shirt somewhere.
Graham Rooms.
Yeah, you made that yourself, didn't you? Too. That's the best. I see. That's the bad. I remember seeing that picture, and we all busted a serious gut on that one because for some reason that was a running joke last season. I don't understand why, but yeah. So, and then also too, we got our videographer, one of the new members is Hale Scherf. She does a phenomenal job. She actually put together all those videos. If you've seen any of the videos that we've released, that's all her. She does a killer job, kicks some serious butt. Not to mention also, your story came to life not because of audio production necessarily and voice acting, but J.M. Scherf.
Oh, yeah.
Without J.M.'s music, most of these stories don't come to life.
I definitely agree with that. Everyone that's a part of this is phenomenal.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, man, I tell you. And we can't forget the new guy on the block, Mr. Michael Zenke. Man, Mr. Zenke, his writing is just phenomenal. So season 3 is going to be a different flavor, and it's going to be something to be had. So that's all I wanted to say on that stuff. Gotta love you, JM. You always do such a great job. I cannot forget to stress enough that you people need to listen to the music to the episodes because it really brings the soul together. But Alistair, you rock. Dave, you rock. Brooks, I love you, man. And we'll talk again soon. So you guys are epic.
Thank you very much. You guys have a good night.
Before we all part,
Nope.
Sorry, I want to say before we all part ways here. is there anything that you're working on, Dave, that you wanted to let us know about, or let the fans know about, let anyone listening know about?
Did we lose you, Brooks?
No, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Uh-oh. Might have lost Brooks.
Am I not here? I'm here. Do you guys hear me?
Yep.
I'm here.
He gradually got quieter and quieter until he disappeared.
Did you notice he was getting quiet too?
Yeah,
he definitely was.
I can hear you.
Slowly moving away. It was like in Get Out.
Oh. All right. Well.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, you are.
All right,
I seem to be having some Wi-Fi issues.
Well, I will cut that out, Brooks. Don't worry about it.
I was going to say, because I have my other microphone recording, so I'm talking and you're all going to it's going to sound very strange.
Oh, anyways. Yeah. We're talking all over you, probably. He didn't hear you.
I just kept talking up to anyways. No worries. We always have technical issues.
I'll cut it all out.
Yay. So on that note, gentlemen, I want to say thank you for everyone being here. We will definitely make sure to put all the links in the show notes for everything we've talked about, Dave, so that we can get people sent in your direction to find out more about you, the things that you enjoy, the things that you like, the things that you're working on. Same with you, Alistair. We'll do that again. And we all know what Jason and I are doing, so no need to talk about that anymore.
Nah.
Yeah.
I got to go break some celery and punch a cantaloupe. That's about it.
There you go. We need that new fold.
Nothing for Brooks.
I'm sorry, what? What'd you say, Dave? It's like nobody's hearing me. Okay, wonderful.
I heard you.
Yeah, we can hear you now. We can't hear Dave now.
Oh, no.
I can't hear
Dave says he can't hear me.
Time Anyways, to call it quits.
I know, it's like we're being told now that we should definitely shut the show down.
I don't know if you hear me or not, but I can't hear Brooks at all. I can hear Alistair and Jason, but...
Oh,
we can hear you, Dave. Uh-oh.
Yeah, we hear you.
All right, well, on that note, gentlemen, everybody enjoy your night and your day. Yes, and we'll all say hello to each other on social media. Yay.
Right.
High fives digitally all around.
I'll translate because we're having a technical issue here, but he's basically saying goodbye to everybody, Dave. And
all right. All right, sounds good. Thank you for the assist. I appreciate it, and thank you again for producing this. And I hope you have something for season 3 from me.
Yeah, man, me too. I hope so as well. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. It's our pleasure.
Awesome.
Alistair,
and on that note, good night.
Later.
Good night, everyone.
Join us each week after every episode for another edition of Behind the Door.